Welcome to the FOCIS podcast, brought to you by the FOCIS Communications Committee.
Well, hello, Dr. Milner. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So my name is Josh Milner. I'm a pediatric allergist and immunologist and the director of allergy, immunology, and rheumatology at Columbia University Medical Center. And I am this year's FOCIS 2024 meeting chair.
Well, thank you so much for being here. So why don't we start with what attracted you to the field of immunology?
Chaos. I absolutely loved the chaos that was the immune system. It wasn't one organ in one place. It was all over the place. It did all sorts of things and idiosyncratic things. And you could basically uncover some order out of the chaos, little bits at a time. And it was really like solving a mystery. And I just thought that science was amazing. And the patients who had immunologic disorders were totally manifestations of that and incredible opportunities to help and also to learn from. And so I just thought that's what I want to do for a career.
Well, that sounds very interesting. So then what would you say is next for you in the future for your career?
Yeah, so, obviously there are always things to discover and more things to uncover. But I think what I really want to make sure that in my next phases is to really make those practical, comprehensive ways of using the immune system and what we know, or at least know what to look for in the immune system to comprehensively diagnose and create precision interventions for patients or even from newborns who we screen for immunologic issues before the symptoms come up, but using the knowledge that we have and the incredible resources we have to understand what's happening on population levels, to actually then turn that into a way that medicine is practiced in a precision fashion with immunology in a way that we could only think about beforehand. But we actually can start to translate that incredible precision medicine out of the chaos that the immune system can wreak.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. That was very fascinating.
Thank you.
Now we will hear from Dr. Eisenbarth, who is a part of the Education Committee.
Well, hello, Dr. Eisenbarth. Thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Right. Well, thanks for having me here. My name is Stephanie Eisenbarth, and I'm at Northwestern University. I am the Chief of Allergy and Immunology there and the new director of a Center for Human Immunobiology.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. So to start out, why don't you tell us a little bit how you first got involved with FOCIS?
Yeah, actually, I've been involved with FOCIS for quite a while. I am now the chair of the Education Committee for FOCIS. I've really valued the group, the meetings, the community for many decades, actually since it first began. So I was lucky enough as a senior graduate student, I was finishing my graduate studies in immunology with Kim Bottomley at Yale, when my father, who was also an immunologist, said, there's going to be this new meeting, which is going to work to bring together immunologists doing immunology across all these different disease states. And I think it'd be a really fun meeting for you to go. And he was going. He was actually, his name was George Eisenbarth, and he was one of the helped found some of the principles underlying the FOCIS meeting. And so he said, why don't you come along with me? I'll be there. And so he and I got to go to that first meeting together, and I've been hooked ever since and have been coming now for many decades.
Wow. Well, that's really exciting. Yeah. So happy for you to be here this year.
Me too.
And then, so you said you're at Northwestern now.
Yeah.
What would you say some of your proudest moments since you've been at Northwestern?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the new center that we've developed. So Northwestern has an incredible focus on translational research across many different disease states and different departments. And when I first got there, it was very clear that there were people doing immunology, but were a bit siloed, a little bit like what FOCIS was trying to address when it first got together. So there would be people doing immunology in cardiology, in neurology, in many of the different divisions of Department of Medicine. but they weren't all talking to each other. And so we launched this new center, the Center for Human Immunobiology, or CHI, we call it CHI, in August of 2022. And that has been really amazing because it's brought together faculty from all these different departments. Actually, about 28 different departments and divisions have members now, faculty members in our CHI, including my own, the Division of Allergy and Immunology. And it's really been an incredible experience to see these different people, researchers, physicians, scientists, collaborating across these divides and starting to really think about basic principles that underlie diseases across these different states. And it's been super fun. We're about to hold our big first real full day retreat in July. We've had wonderful discussion groups for faculty, for trainees. We have both faculty and trainee members. We're now well over a couple of hundred members. So it's been a really exciting launch and a really exciting new time for immunology at Northwestern.
Great. Well, that sounds very exciting. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
And now we will hear from Dr. Lionakis, who was a speaker at the FOCIS 2024 annual meeting.
Hello, Dr. Lionakis. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Well, thanks for having me. My name is Michail Lionakis. I'm a physician scientist at the National Institutes of Health in the intramural program of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. I'm an infectious disease and immunology trained physician scientist.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here. To start out, what would you say attracted you to the field of immunology?
As an infectious disease expert and as an immunologist, I was really attracted by the fact that we constantly get exposed to pathogens, and we need to find ways to defend ourselves against those, while at the same time find ways to avoid attack against our own self. So that distinction and the fascination of how we can actually distinct that was one of the major reasons why I was fascinated early on with immunology.
Right. So then what would you say, what research are you most proud of that you've conducted?
So in my lab, we try to understand mechanisms of how we all defend against different pathogens, primarily against fungi. And over the course of the last decade, we focused on one particular human disease that's called autoimmune polyendocrine syndrome type 1, where there was a symposium yesterday here at FOCUS. And what we've done over the last decade is enrolled the largest population of this rare disease at NIH. Did mechanistic studies to understand how and why these patients develop autoimmunity. That also includes fungal disease. And more recently, over the last 2-3 years, we've taken that basic information and developed personalized mechanism treatments for these patients that have put them in remission. So one of the proudest moments as a physician scientist is to be able to see that we make an observation from humans, we take it to the bench for research, and then we can put it back to patients and make an impact in their lives.
Well, that is very interesting. And then to wrap up our interview, what are you most excited about when it comes to the future of autoimmune research?
I think the last 20 years, the hematology oncology has really given us a paradigm where I think the research for autoimmunity will go. And what I mean by that is 20 years ago, there were 2-3 chemotherapy regimens that all cancers were treated with. And fast forward now, this field has really exploded to have new biologics and new treatments that really are very tailored and personalized to the individual that has different subtypes of cancer. In parallel, I think what's exciting in the autoimmune research is that there's so many now targeted therapeutics that I think through research over the years, we might be able to get to the point where we can subcategorize patients and give them the right drug that they need for their condition. And as opposed to what has been happening in the past, where there's non-specific medications can actually make an impact. I think that's the exciting area ahead of us for autoimmunity research.
Right. Well, that does sound very exciting. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with me.
And now we will hear from Dr. Zhang, who is another speaker at the FOCUS 2024 annual meeting.
Well, hello, Dr. Zhang. Thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, my name is Linqi Zhang, a professor at the Tsinghua Medicine, Tsinghua University, and I'm glad to be here. My research focus has been viral pathogenesis, studying the interaction between viral infections and immune responses, particularly focusing on HIV infections and the human coronavirus infection.
Well, thank you so much again for taking the time to be here with us. So what would you say attracted you to the field of immunology?
While I was in university graduate studies, I'm fascinated by the complexity and beauty of immunology, particularly once I enrolled into graduate study in Edinburgh University in Scotland. My study subject was HIV evolution and immune responses. So by then I was firsthand experiencing how virus and immunology and immune system interact, and began to realize in the real world how beautiful and complex our immunology is. That's has driven me digging deeper into the field. And then that's how I get into the field of immunology. But ultimately, studying the interaction between viruses and the immune system could help us to better understand how we could respond to our infection and identify the key element of our immune system, such as antibodies and cells that really play a potent role against viruses. And then we could develop antiviral drugs, antibody drugs, and vaccines for better protection.
Right. That sounds really great. Thank you so much for taking the time to interview with me today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.